Yes, it's good to be here.
You like being called Bill? Right?
Yes, Bill is fine.
Just plain Bill.
Just plain Bill.
That was a great
That's
soap
a song.
opera.
Oh, that's what it was.
That was in the 40s. I can remember they had one and they had one called Portia Faces Life, which is great. So, welcome very, very much to Conversation. We have a return engagement with Dr. William or Bill Crain, PhD, and a sterling human being from my perspective, because we agree on some of the most elemental nature of certain elemental ethical principles that ought to apply upon this planet, which is a good reason for having a good friendship. And welcome, Bill, very much indeed.
Thanks for having me here.
We're going to be talking here on a couple of things, I think, both of which we agree wholeheartedly on. One has to do with childhood.
Yes.
And you can see from the book, perhaps, that we've got here on the middle stand, he's written a book called Reclaiming Childhood, which is a major book and the major issue that he addresses in that. He's also a professor of education with CUNY, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and has been there. And he also has an interest in what would be loosely termed animal rights.
That's right.
And he has an animal rescue farm upstate New York. All of these issues we're going to be talking about, but once again, welcome really very, very much to Conversations. We taped a program a couple of years ago, and maybe we can begin with a little bit, a real thumbnail way, your background and your educational background a little bit, and then we'll get into talking about childhood and consciousness of the youth and that sort of thing, and the educational pattern as it relates to human psychology. But share just your own background, if you would, briefly for us, Bill.
Well, sure. I grew up in Los Angeles for the first 10 years of my life, and then we moved to Southern California.
Okay.
And I went off.
But Los Angeles is Southern California.
Well, that's right.
You
Orange County.
Orange County, down in Santa Ana or something.
Yeah, Anaheim.
Anaheim, yeah, right, okay.
And then we moved to, that was when I went to high school.
Yeah.
And then I went back east, as we used to call it there, to Harvard for undergraduate. And
go east, young man.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then the University
You went to Harvard and did what, undergrad? Or there?
Well, I was in what they call social relations there.
Okay.
And that's an interdisciplinary field of studies. It included psychology, anthropology, and sociology.
I like the idea of interdisciplinary or more comprehensive, taking a measure of things.
Right.
You do too, apparently?
Yes. And then I went for graduate school. I went to the University of Chicago, and I got my doctorate both in clinical psychology and in another interdisciplinary field called human development, which was developmental psychology combined with, once again, anthropology and sociology.
Is that still in effect, human development departments?
Yes, there's two committees at the University of Chicago that give degrees, interdisciplinary committees. One is in social thought, and the other is human development.
Okay.
And both are interdisciplinary. So tried to have a general perspective on psychology, on life, not to look at the person from a biological point of view and an anthropological point of view, sociological point of view, not so narrowly psychology.
Right. I think the narrowness of the disciplines we've developed are not in keeping with what is real.
Right.
Reality is really everything is interconnected to everything else, and the Vedics have said it's a seamless web.
Right.
And it really is, but we divide it down into disciplines for convenience or something. But I had a program I did a couple of days ago or something where I said there's no department of everything in a university. Is divided up more into expertise, which the danger is you're going to get tunnel vision and not be able to see the patterns between subsystems that make up a larger system or a paradigm of paradigms. It's hard to get that kind of an overview.
Right. I think I agree with that. There's an increasing specialization, and even within the sciences, people, they study genetics, but they don't know the animal or the organism on a larger level, or those who study on a larger level have trouble keeping up with all what's going on in genetics. But so there's a need for a broader perspective.
There is,
because everybody's off in their own narrow pattern. And when it comes to children, you know, we tend to focus in on whatever we're interested in with childhood, which is right now academic skills and just pushing them at younger and younger ages. And I think a lot of the people like you, or you're mentioning how you were watching your grandchildren and taking pleasure in them. And a lot of what you learn about children is just by watching children
and letting them be.
And letting them be.
Maybe, yes. That's my sense.
And enjoying them and appreciating them as children. So that increasingly became a concern of mine that we're not letting children be children. We keep preparing them for the future, as we say, and which means more and more academic skills at earlier and earlier ages. So right now, even kindergarten is academic. There's homework and there's academic.
Structure the time.
Structure their time. The teacher's time is structured. Play has been removed. And so that's been a major concern. We're killing childhood is what we're doing. We're taking childhood away, play, the arts, their time in natural settings. They really need time in nature to...
You do think that? A lot of people growing up urban now, so there's not a hell of a lot of nature around, you know?
Right, and even in the rural settings, there's so much TV and video games that the kids are indoors, and we can create very stimulating environments, but they need time in the nature's outdoors in order to develop their senses, to play creatively, and to get some feeling of being part of the larger web of life.
Okay, a web of life,
they need some feeling of being part of something broader than themselves.
George Carlin did a shtick one time. I loved George Carlin. I wept when he passed, and he was doing the kid. He said, we ought to let the kid just sit there with nothing but a stick. And just leave them alone, for crying out loud, and let them develop their own way, you know, because I shared that thing with you. Maybe it's worth talking about a study that psychologists did. I shared it on the telephone, that the state of being that is creative, they measured, psychologists did, and they put a chronologic age, across the world. It peaks at 5.
Right.
A 5-year-old is in cross section of them and so forth, are in what would be identified as a creative way of being.
Yes.
And then they go to school. Yes. Or then they become older and they start being molded by us and everything. And yet, I believe the 5-year-olds, I think, are my favorite people. They are all so honest and so curious and so they're not artful. There's no artifice, it seems. They're just gorgeous at that age. I think you share that.
Yes, I do. Yeah. There is other evidence besides that you're mentioning on this, that it's about 5 or 6 in that age range is a high point of fantasy, make-believe play, very creative play. If people can watch it, children when they're free to play, and watch them their make-believe play, they're like little theater directors. And it's very advanced. Or they imagine their imaginary companions, and all the things. They just create something out of nothing. And
a stick. In the words of George Carlin, just leave them alone with the stick.
And then they love to draw and sing and dance, and their artistic work, like in drawings, has been studied very thoroughly. It becomes just remarkable.
Really?
Where artists, great masters like Paul Klee and Pablo Picasso.
I can see that.
They say they like to. Their goal has been to. They say to recapture the creative attitude they had as a young child. There's a famous line, at least famous in the art criticism world, by Picasso, where he said, "Once I could draw like Raphael." He meant at 14 he could draw like Raphael. He really could. But he said, I spent the rest of my life trying to learn to draw like a child. And they try to get that. They get movement and creativity in their drawings. It's their play is wonderful, and their enthusiasm for animals, for
curious and
curiosity. They love animals.
Just unending curiosity.
Unending curiosity.
And I think that's the most precious thing we could try and preserve in our human beings, if we could. You know, and yet. Creative is one part of a consciousness. There's lots of different kinds of states of mind that you could have, one of which is creative. I happen to think that's really an important. Inquisitive, curiosity, self-directed, curious, all that. Creative is one. There are others which usually are things where you have to learn not to be thinking about those things, but to be practical, and to get yourself into a mood where you're going to be able to have a position that's going to allow you to get some money so you can buy bread to survive. And it's a tough world out there, and you've got to get used to it. And creativity is just sort of fantasizing and daydreaming, and it's not of any meaning. And so that's one thing we can give credit. There's diligence and ability to not do what you want to do, and to that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So we're instilling upon them things that run counter to the way they are. They seem to be born into this world and mature to a certain stage at 5.
Yeah, well, parents want them to get into the best colleges, and they start drilling them in academics earlier and earlier.
Why?
Well, that's...
No, I'm curious. Why? Why would they want that?
I see it as...
What's behind it?
Well, I see a lot of it as we're so obsessed with the future that that we're so concerned about where the child is going to wind up as an adult that we don't give them a time to be children. And we need to appreciate them right in the moment, that they're children right now. They have a right, I would say, to develop their powers, which are patient observation of nature, play, the arts. They develop in remarkable ways that way, but we just push it aside. There's no time for the arts. My goodness, there's no time to go out and play at a brook or a pond, or just
or with a stick,
or climb trees, or do things.
That's just wasting time.
It's wasting
you could
time.
be learning calculus,
and how? There's nothing about playing in the mud on the SAT. So that parents don't see the point of it. And then our national leaders, all they talk about is the future, getting them ready for the high-tech economy of the 21st century, endlessly, as if childhood itself does not matter. And
existence in a creative state isn't only, I think the artists keep that. And it isn't the efficiency is not all there is to human existence. It's in fact the most important goods of civilization are coming from another place, in a different consciousness than this. It's like bean counter mentality or something to me.
No, it is. They're in the young people today. They get into college and they're high achieving. They're grinds, as we used to call them, and they. There was a course at Harvard recently where they had to teach the students how to take a walk. They didn't know how to just go out and just observe things.
Yes, right.
Which is, it's an attitude of just taking in the world in all its freshness and its in vitality of the world. The world's an interesting place, especially if we don't, destroy it. If we keep paving over every bit of ground, every bit of vegetation, everywhere where I am and where our farm is in Dutchess County, huge developments are going in. They're going to destroy lakes. They're destroying the woods. The real estate development is enormous, and to fight these things, which I've tried to do in many places, is such an uphill battle because there's money to be made in the development.
That seems to be the one. If you said, what's the one thing that's worth keeping your eye on in terms of you come into this world, it's money. It seems to have come to such a prominence in terms of human values and so on. It's money. That's the thing. It seems to have become a singular. It takes precedence over everything. Bill Clinton did a thing. The idea that if somebody's going to have some leisure to be able to do what they want to do, or maybe intermingle with the family, or the daughter's got a crisis or something, but you've got to get to the job. You got to do that. That's above all else. And that's what school largely is doing, is teaching them to fit into an order like that. To me, I mean, it'd be better off if they didn't go to school. I don't know.
Well,
or we should save that 5-year-old from the adults. From the adults.
Yes, definitely. I think
if we could.
In many states, actually, kindergarten is optional.
Oh, good.
And parents don't know that.
Are there any states where education is optional? Or should there be?
Well, there is a.
And you got to.
There is a homeschooling movement. So many parents are increasingly put off by this. The rigid, test-driven, skill-driven orientation of the schools.
It reached a crescendo in recent years.
Yeah, it's getting real bad.
Awful bad.
And now our Secretary of Education wants to put kids in increase the amount of time during the day in school and increase the length of the school year, just more times, and it's very tedious. It turns them off to learning. It's all indoors. They don't have recess anymore. 30 to 40% of the schools.
I used to love recess best.
Well, I did too.
Yeah.
The kids need
and
some time.
And summer vacation was heaven.
I know they want to reduce that, and it's a real problem where kids don't have time to get outdoors, and as I say, in natural settings. On your point, I think it's a really good one that about people are productive. Thoreau once said that if somebody is out cutting down trees, he's considered a productive man. Yeah. If somebody's out taking a walk in the woods, he's considered a loafer.
A loafer,
yeah,
right.
just out walking around, considered not doing anything productive.
Or writing a poem.
Writing a poem.
Or,
But we need time to just observe the natural world, not try to change it, not destroy it, not pave it over, not make it...
Put up a parking lot.
Not put in our own human designs and let it be. Let things be. We somehow lost that.
Beatles song about
it was, and
wasn't it? You like
I don't know,
one?
buddy. I like the phrase.
I like imagination,
I like the phrase.
Yeah.
But we don't. We seem to think that we call everything in the nature a resource. That's what it's on my mind because once I say I was up at a meeting of the Beekman Township, and they're discussing all these developments. And they have a grand plan, a master plan, and it's not bad. The master plan, they refer to everything in nature as a resource, like it's there for our use. And it's not all there for our use. There's other animals that are here for their own reasons.
Absolutely.
The trees
it is a seamless web. Everything
it is. The trees are here for their own reasons.
There's more and more appreciation coming, I think. But it's the misuse of human beings that is so bothersome to me. I mean, I don't know how they can do it. It was really, like, I'm from Detroit, and in fact, Mr. Ford used to tinker in my mother's mother's garage when he was about 10, before he set up the assembly line. And you really have to, a farmer who would be doing things on a family farm, which was a major occupational thing in the turn of the 19th, 20th century, you'd go and you'd feed the chickens, and then you'd fix the tractor, and then you're doing things where you're actually doing things that have something. But to get somebody conditioned to where they're going to go and stand and all day, 8 hours a day, turn the same nut, that's like modern times, Chaplin. You had to condition the hell out of them to be able to do that, and it was to make so that you could make money. And everything took precedence. I mean, that took precedence. What you had to do, you had to learn to do what they're telling you to do, even if it's rote, and much of it is, and most of it is, and to get people to do something that is so against our nature has been very successful, and it ought to be questioned, it seems. Or maybe it's going to have to be questioned, or we're going to lead to such dysfunction locally, more than locally, nationally, and everything, to where we have the capability now of blowing the whole thing up that we've never had.
There's a great deal of...
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And maybe they're going to have to, on the adverse side, they're going to have to let people be free rather than slaves of a system where they have to do what they're told in order to be able to eat.
Right. Well, that's,
you know what I mean? We may be transcending scarcity or something in terms of our capability.
I think that's
without the labor input needed, with the slavery. We've had slavery, and it may be liberation is coming to where people will be able to lead a life where they're not going to have to be concerned with money.
Right.
Or inordinately so. Right. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base.
No,
but
I think so.
I think it's coming.
It's more and more they're controlling children. They're controlling every moment. They have to do this topic at this time, this subject at another time. The teachers are controlled. It's called scripted instruction now in Los Angeles, some in New York, in many of the big cities where they're told exactly what to teach at what moment of the day. It's this, there are literacy police, teachers say, that come around to make sure that the teachers are teaching what they should be doing. It's, and the kids are regimented to such a degree, learning things that we adults think they ought to be learning without appreciating their own deepest interests.
And what they want to learn doesn't count.
It does not count.
No, and you're going to be like us.
Yeah, and you're getting them ready for
work.
For the work world.
for the work world, and you're getting ready to be answerable to an authority.
To an
It's going to
authority.
tell them what to do. The straw boss, or the foreman, or whatever. Or in corporate America, you're doing all kinds of. It's so deadening.
It's deadening.
And also, it's a lot of things like Lord Crain said they're going to be displaced by things, or even Aristotle said you had to have slavery until the loom learned to weave, and the production's increasingly coming, particularly in cyber and everything. I think it's going to set a situation up where it's being produced, and you're not going to have servile, wage slave people mentality and people. How the hell do you get them to go down in a mine where they're going to be, the ground's going to fall down on them, or all these terrible things they've had to do in order to eat?
Precisely.
You know, and when we have a capability of providing more than enough, not only for all the people of the world in an overabundant way than we've had out of history, and then also we could take into account the creatures and the way we treat them. I mean, how can we stand by and let all the assets be owned by a tiny group of people, all the productive assets, and then everyone else is just like, sir, and they set the templates, the societal templates, politically and economically, the leadership, they set the template, they own the assets, they got the power, and then everybody else has to fit into their thing.
Right.
And how does it, we set 95% of the people, how is it that we've allowed that to develop? And, you know, it seems to me that's going to be challenged right now in the time in which we live, this idea. They're going to have an alternative way to distribute income other than through these demands upon wages and job roles that they're going to deign to make available to us.
I think we've...
Yeah, understand. I think we had a liberation coming.
Yeah, historically, I think a lot of it began with the development of agriculture. Way back at one time,
10,000 years
ago. A while back, hunter-gatherers kind of took what was there, and they learned to pay close attention to the world as it was, as a given. And then once we learned to domesticate animals and start growing our own crops, we got control of these things. And then it was a pretty short step to controlling people. The next. I think these went hand in hand. This is a very broad brush,
of course it
a
is.
broad scope, but we keep controlling things, and to learn not to control our kids, to give them freedom, or to not control the natural world is a lesson we're maybe too late. We're getting the sense we've dammed, we've dammed up so many of the rivers. Finally, the Army Corps of Engineers has decided we have to maybe take down a couple
of those rivers flow.
Let them flow. We can't just create, just create the rivers the way we want them to go. We have to let them flow. We've ruined the wetlands. We've ruined the capacity to absorb storms, which was a major part of the tragedy in New Orleans. And just to let, as you go back to that Beatles phrase,
let it be.
Let it be.
Let it be.
Let the kids be kids. Do we have to control them every moment and get them ready? Now there's all this pressure to get them into a competitive future.
I can't understand why.
Well, they want the best for their kids.
Why does somebody want to go to Harvard? Now, it seems to me you're going to go to Harvard or one of the schools, Yale, Law, and all that. You're going to go, so you're going to get a big Rolodex build up of people that you're going to associate with at a social level, and then you're going to be able to make big contracts and get big deals and be in the leadership element because you're dealing with the people that it's mostly about social contact.
I think it is, and the competition. Once you create a competition, you have prestigious colleges and next level and so on. I think people will do anything to get on the top of a if you have a contest, people will join it and they'll try to win. So a lot of it is to try to get rid of this competitive pressure. If you say getting into Harvard is the goal, then or MIT or whatever the top tier colleges, whatever.
They would drive
the education, it doesn't make any difference. There's data that indicate it doesn't really make any difference where you go to college in terms of the future. But but the competitive drive to get there And even we got to compete with the other nations. We have the one nation that is ironically the one nation that takes a more leisurely approach toward children and insists that children have lots of recess time between classes, that their young kids have a positive feeling toward learning, is Finland.
All right, good.
And Finland actually has is a world leader in test scores and economic productivity.
That's really
it's
interesting.
An irony.
How they measure it, that'd be interesting. And is that characteristic of the Scandinavian countries?
Well,
Finland's a little unique.
It is unique,
language,
and there are lots of factors in there.
Right, sure. It's hard to put it on one.
It's hard to. You don't want to make too much of it, except that it does indicate you don't have to put kids through this pressure cooker of driving them for test prep and driving them in test-driven education and ruining their creativity. Yeah. You can take a more leisurely. It can work that you can take a more leisurely approach and still get the outcomes that you want. So it does indicate that you don't have to put the screws to children the way we're doing now. I mean, right now kids they're going to kindergarten and they're given standardized tests. The kids don't even know how to read yet. They don't know what to do with a piece of paper.
Right.
But they're forced to take the tests. They vomit on the tests. They're so scared.
Yeah.
They wet their pants. And what we do to kids right now, in the name of higher standards and preparing them for the competitive 21st century, is really criminal. It's kids are not happy, and you're seeing rising depression in childhood. You're seeing rising indicators of all kinds of emotional disturbances. You see a huge amount of depression in adults. It's getting younger and younger.
Oh yeah,
and
a lot of dysfunction.
Like you say, it takes its toll.
Yeah,
and I think fundamentally, children have a right to a happy childhood, just like we have a right to enjoy our lives.
Why shouldn't we all have a right
to
a happy life?
I think it's in one of the founding documents.
Well, it's a pursuit of happiness, and the pursuit of happiness is piling up riches.
Well, there you go.
You pile up riches, and so then you can make other people do things rather than have other people make you do things you don't want to do. But the point is you have to get used to that. You're going to have to do something you don't want to do.
Right.
And you learn that as a discipline, like you had to do all those irregular verbs, or you had to do the algebra. You had to do, there's a certain thing that you had to do and so forth like that.
Right.
And the idea of autodidactic, and I saw a thing that was very heartening to me, that the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, and that, they have, you have people who are scholars, okay, that's something good, they're real scholars. Then you have people who are really good teachers and good lecturers, and they've taken the best lecturers that are selected by the popularity, and the students think they're really good and everything, and from the Ivy League schools, all the major Ivy League schools, and they're putting them for free to anybody who wants them on YouTube for free, and you can get a tutorial from the best lecturers from the best Ivy League schools that you want. MIT has its whole curriculum on the internet now, and you can get at anything through the internet, this kind of thing. But the idea that they're putting the best lecturers on, I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
And then you could just get educated. Why would anybody want to go and pay $50,000 a year to build up a Rolodex?
It's the prestige, being the top dog, and as you say, having more money.
It is that, yeah.
And you see where the pursuit of money has gotten us. I mean, it's just it's greed. It's a superficial life to just own more and more things. It's not a life of learning, of thinking,
or creating.
And ironically, the great scientists, almost to a person, are those who like to play with ideas, can play with different models, and they go back to their own childhoods. They played a lot. I was reading the autobiography of Craig Venter, one of the guys who in the genome, who created the shotgun method of
sped that thing up.
Sped it up. And whatever you think of Craig Venter, he's a kind of a controversial guy, but he's as creative as all get out. And he hated school.
I hated
and
school.
felt it was like a prison. It was like a prison.
It was to me.
And
almost as bad as the Army.
And he almost flunked out. Was a surfer for a while. Almost went to Vietnam. Almost committed suicide.
Wow, really?
And then he did. Yeah, he came back and went to Orange Coast College, a junior college, and then got interested in science.
Orange County College?
Yeah, Orange Coast.
Orange Coast. Is that Orange County?
Yeah, it is in Orange County.
Anaheim
it's out near. I think it's out near Newport Beach or one of the beaches.
Most conservative little corners of the world.
Well, he was initially conservative.
Yeah, right. Okay,
he went there because there was a lot of nice surf.
That's Southern California.
Yeah, it is.
I see. I didn't catch that.
He liked the surf.
Yeah, right.
He said he could take some courses. He decided he had to do something with his life.
Yeah.
But he made a hydroplane in high school.
Yeah.
Hydroplane. He flunked all his book learning courses, but made a hydroplane. And just a tremendously creative guy. But there's all kinds of number of scientists who had this love of nature, of curiosity, as you say, of playfulness.
That's the thing. There's curiosity, and that's the thing you want to keep alive and burning.
Oh, yes.
And if there's curiosity, and then if you want to find out, if you're there's a term autodidact, they can teach themselves. If they keep the curiosity, the world is so interesting. Every year, every day, there's a new thing that comes in over the transom. There's so much to learn. It's so interesting. If you keep it, and now we got these sources. We used to have the Encyclopedia Britannica and Harvard Classics. You could read books. But now we got this electronic stuff. You can just get educated at the greatest, as long as you keep an open, curious way toward the world, which we try to beat out of them.
And so many writers and artists and thinkers appreciated the library, the public library.
Yeah, right.
And that's still a great tradition of just spending time reading the books in the library.
Well, reading books, or you can also look at, they've got great stuff on multimedia. World's going multimedia.
Yeah.
It's morphing to the cell phone, and it's going and they have great presentations on things that you can learn so much, and you just think it goes by because there's so little of it. So much of it is candy, but it go by, and it's being collected. All these things on things. I saw a thing of the way the world looked with animation. The best paleontologists in the world, I think it was 650 million years ago or something like that. I could not take my eye off it. And it had animation and good research, and it was everything, they can do this so you can learn. Well, that's a big subject. You're a professor of education on the side of the
psychology,
kids, child psychology particularly, and written amazingly good and really well taken book called Reclaiming Childhood. I congratulate you on all that work, and I think we agree on the beauty of the 5-year-old mentality that the good book says they should lead us. I think maybe we could take heart in that.
Yes.
But also you're also now got a farm, and you're taking interest in the treatment of the animal creatures that are part of our environment. And we agreed on the telephone the other day that we got a real common feeling about that also, right?
Yes.
Maybe an extension of what we were talking about in terms of children.
I think it is. It's an extension of making money. In order to make money, the farms have become huge businesses that are cramped. It just, as I get older, my heart is just not altogether of my own will. It just seems like my heart has gone out to animals, and the abuse of animals, the billions of animals that are raised in factory farms where most do not have space to even move.
It is absolutely unconscionable.
Well, you can make more money by crowding them into tight conditions, and so recently my wife and I bought some land, and we have a rescue farm where some of the animals have come from the factory farm, some from slaughterhouses. We bought them out of before they went to slaughter.
Really? Are there people? Okay, yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Well, there's some right around the city, live meat markets, which are really
live what?
Live meat markets, which are really slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
And some in the factory farms, they live a few weeks and then they are killed. Yeah. And the living conditions are so bad that it's like being in a prison.
I
terrible prison.
I didn't know that you had ever been to one. The one specifically, I hadn't think it was a searing experience.
Yes,
it really was, and also very frustrating because I was at one of those places where they have a chicken farm to produce eggs.
Yes,
and I was there, and they're stuffed 4 in a cage.
Yes,
their beaks cut.
Yes,
so that they can't. And the one little thing brings them food, it takes manure, and then they got a little thing that catches the eggs, and they're in there, and they're absolutely insane.
Yes.
They cannot move.
Right.
and they're adult. I mean, it is absolutely unconscionable to allow creatures to be treated that way.
Right.
And I understand it's the same with the hogs.
Oh,
on the hog farms down in Carolina or something.
Yes, it's in all of the states. There's a few states that have tried to ease this up a little bit.
Okay.
But it's only there's like 6 currently where they have to have room to turn around. I mean, that's
good God Almighty.
And
yes,
or the chickens have to have room to spread their wings. But that's still a very small minority, and most of these laws won't go into effect for 5 or 6 years. So in the meantime, generations of chickens will not be able to move.
Okay. Well, now suppose they say, well, we got to get them eggs, and it's only a chicken, and it's they got that attitude of where it's a resource to be used. We're here, we can use in that, and also the laws of economics won't allow farmer A to do anything other than get 1/4% of profit gain out of the process by sticking them in tighter cages.
There you have the profit
and all
motive.
of that. And
where's our compassion? If people, we're supposed to have feelings as human beings.
Well, compassion for the least among us. All the wisdom schools have told us to be concerned with the least among us, and we let them lie on the street. And we don't have a system. We don't come up with a system that can begin to give them a liberation of a free, for that. So no wonder that we treat the creatures so.
And we'll treat ourselves.
And we treat ourselves.
And we'll treat it. It's probably tied in. And the more we learn, the more we learn. And the more we learn about different animals, we're finally opening our eyes to the researchers even who for a long time they were not supposed to see feelings in animals or personalities.
Baloney, they see there's plenty of feelings.
But the scientists were not allowed. It was called anthropomorphism, and it was a sin. But now that's finally cracking that barrier. And the more we learn about any species, the more we see each member is an individual with an individual temperament, with their own feelings. Their lives are complex. They have rich social lives, emotional lives. This goes to chickens, pigs. My gosh, pigs are highly intelligent, sensitive animals, and they're probably abused worse than any other. You think the pigs animal.
Are the worst? I can't imagine anything worse than those chickens I saw.
Well, the chickens they're pretty similar.
Horrible.
One horror as opposed to another. They're highly similar. And I mean, it's like
the justification.
It's like which hell is worse? It's a living hell.
And you can let them be in hell. We had slaves, I guess, at one time within the human condition, and they could, all that. It's just such a. But I'm pleased, and I'm in agreement with. I think there's going to be just a gigantic objection to allowing those laws to allow that kind of treatment of the creatures.
I hope so.
I think so.
I hope so.
But what is it going to cost more then? And they're going to say comparative advantage, Ricardo, and all that. And I got comparative advantage by just enslaving these chickens not caring at all about them. Don't do it. Let's go. It's
in California. That Proposition 2. That was the argument of the farming industry, which is if you.
What was Proposition 2?
Well, in California, they recently passed a proposition that said that you couldn't put pigs in gestation crates, although they don't have many pigs in California, but which are these. Like prison-like conditions where they can't move, they can't even lie down, they're so tight. Or the chickens that can't move.
You mean for life? I mean they're in that all the time.
That's right, almost their whole life. The females are the most abused, but they're all none of them see any sunlight, and none of them see. It's just terrible. The chickens each have a space typically in the factory farms of the size of a piece of typing paper.
Good God Almighty.
That's their size. So the California law that passed said they have to have room to move their wings. Now that's not much more room, and that's considered progress. But as you say, the agribusiness, the factory farming industry, spent a huge amount of money and lobbied ferociously against this proposition, which is a referendum that came from the people.
The referendum for what?
To say that they had to be able to move their wings.
They should have better conditions.
The
people should be up in righteous wrath against the economic gurus.
They should say stop.
In the name
of... Stop it all. In the name of humanity or animal rights or compassion.
We have animal rights or something.
And the industry said it will cost more. It might cost a penny more per egg or something.
Yeah, well, couldn't they make the same argument about how wonderful it was a good institution called human slavery?
Slavery is more economically efficient than letting everybody free. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, economic. Yeah. When economics.
So how do we get over that hurdle, and how do we get over that hurdle with the creatures?
Well, I think hopefully you make people aware of it. So in our farm, what we do is we try to.
Yeah, you have a rescue farm.
It's a rescue farm, and we can only rescue a few animals. We don't have the resources to rescue. It's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But we do have, open it up to people, and they can come and see the animals, and we can tell them a little bit about where these animals came from.
Okay, talk about it a little bit. You're upstate in Dutchess,
You're right, Dutchess County.
And you rescued chickens that had been encaged or something, or what?
Yes.
How does it work, or how do you?
Well, one was found. Hopefully, we can play a little bit of it. I'll show
we've
you.
got a tape. Maybe we could.
I'll tell you a
play
little bit
that
about
tape.
those.
Yeah, we have a piece of videotape that's going to show some creatures, and then we're going to talk over it and keep the mic open. So it goes 4 or 5 minutes, I guess. And so we're going to run that, and we'll talk over it, and then we'll come back and pick up on this.
Okay.
So we're talking with William Crain, one of the better human beings on this planet, if I would say so. And let's run that tape now, and we'll talk over it. Okay, what are we seeing here, Bill?
Okay, this is the. We're kind of taking a walk in with our handheld camera
Is
into
your
the
place upstate?
safe farm. Yes,
Okay.
And that's a picture of the barn as you come in. It's
Look
called
at
the
that.
Safe Haven Farm Sanctuary.
What a beautiful tree.
Those goats were taken out of a live meat market, which is really just a slaughterhouse. There's a sheep, a couple sheep lying down.
Yeah.
One of the goats we took out of the live meat market was pregnant.
Wow.
And so we had 2 for 1. She had a baby on the farm. She would have lost her life and the baby.
Now these are creatures that have been in captivity, as
Yes.
it were, like they were enslaved.
Yes. And the turkeys are very interesting. The turkeys were dropped on the doorstep. Their beaks were cut off. Their toes were cut off, which they do to all turkeys.
They do that in the chicken thing, so they can't
Yes,
peck each
so they
other.
can't peck each other. You put them in such crowded conditions, they will peck each other.
They would peck each other out of just absolute
madness.
Madness. Yeah.
And they don't. Obviously, they're not. They'll play around a little bit, but they won't. There's a rooster.
Now that's the way a rooster's supposed to be, with a barnyard and walking around and some grass and things like that, not stuck in a cage.
That's right. Roosters are
Or a
roosters
chicken.
are crushed up at birth. They're either they're sent into crushing machines or they're suffocated.
What does that mean?
Well, they're just ground up. Most male chickens, the roosters, are just ground up. You don't see too many.
They're not useful except
No, they use
insemination.
artificial
Are they
insemination.
using artificial insemination?
Yes. This is a chicken called Sweetie. She was found walking the streets of Brooklyn.
Wow.
And we got him. There's a chipmunk. I don't know if you can see that little animal.
Well, I can't. Yeah, I can see it on the edge of the tin thing or something.
I'm kind of.
Chipmunks. We used to have those around. When I grew up,
that chipmunk is just resting there all afternoon. He feels so comfortable in this place that he doesn't even run. Usually they dart around.
The chicken was from the streets of Brooklyn?
Yeah, that chicken was from the streets of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
She can't move because they're bred to be so top heavy in order to produce the meat.
Really?
At such a young age, they're bred to gain weight so fast, and they're pumped up with growth hormones and other things that they can't move anymore by the time they're 6 weeks, and often they can't, their legs break, and they die. Many die of heart attack, of respiratory illnesses or heart attacks.
Yeah.
And she was found walking. She could still walk. She was walking the streets of Brooklyn, and they called up a couple places, and we took her in.
Right.
And she's a brave gal. She's now. She's made it through a year, a hot summer. Hopefully she'll make it through another summer.
Okay.
And she can barely move. She has to kind of fly to move.
Is genetically built in by the genetic engineering?
Yeah, that's what they do. These are the broiler.
So you create a broiler.
These are the broiler.
Okay.
The broiler hens.
What do you think about fooling around with the genetics? I mean, genetic engineering.
It ruins their lives. See, the turkeys here are following me. The turkeys. As a horse that was neglected.
That's a Shetland?
Yeah, she's a small one. She's a mini horse. It used to be, this species was enginered to go into the mines.
Oh, in Cornwall or something?
Yeah,
or wherever.
in South Africa and other places in mines where to pull out the carriages, because the mines are small, so it's a very small one. These are the turkeys that the more we learned about these turkeys on the farm, the more I didn't think they were too interesting. But these turkeys are something else. First of all, they weren't supposed to be able to fly, and they can fly.
Okay.
We had a celebration. Some Girl Scouts came over and donated money, and then the Girl Scouts read some pledges, how we were going to honor animals all their lives. And there was a circle of us, the Girl Scouts and my wife and me and the two caretakers who are up there permanently. They're not there right now, but they're permanently. They're on vacation. And anyway, during the ceremony, the turkeys went in and went into each corner of the circle, and they were perfectly still, listening to the Girl Scouts giving their pledges to respect animals. It's as if they were
listening. Yeah, right.
Everybody was astonished. The turkeys are more and more sociable. I never realized how sociable turkeys.
Is that a goat?
Yeah, that is.
It's a goat and then the pony. Yeah.
That's a goat. That's one of the.
And this whole
goats.
area is enclosed, right?
Basically, it's pretty broad. They sometimes get through the fences. Well, we have not a lot of pasture. We're building a new
20 acres or something.
Well, we have 40 acres. Most of it's on a hill.
Yeah.
It's on a hill, so we don't have we wish we had more pasture.
You have 40 acres. Do you have a mule? Okay.
And we wish we had more pasture. The goats are just relaxing. A lot of what happens on a farm is kind of slow-paced.
Yes.
It's not like city life. So but if people want to come up and visit, they're welcome. It's a safe haven farm sanctuary. I think
you call it Safe Haven Farm. Isn't that
sanctuary.
Your website or something?
That's right. Safe Haven.
Maybe we could say that now.
Safe Haven Farm Sanctuary.
SAFEHAVENFARM
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
SANCTUARY. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Something, whatever.
And we got the credit at the end.
Okay, we'll have it at the end.
Is this happening in other places, or is it just is there only you in the whole
universe? There's a big one up near
others?
Syracuse.
Okay.
That's sort of the founder of it all.
How about out in Colorado and California?
There are
and
a few.
Oregon and
California
stuff?
has.
Is there an association of?
We don't have an association, but they are sprouting up. There's one in the Catskills.
Okay.
A Catskill farm
Not just
sanctuary.
a petting farm.
No. People can visit though. Where there's a Sweetie again, the one who was on the streets of Brooklyn, who has trouble moving. But she's out enjoying the sun, the cool grass, and enjoying a life where we consider these like ambassadors to the. Those lucky ones who've been saved. But if people come, they can learn about what happens to all their brothers and sisters who were not lucky enough to be saved.
And you're giving the feeding each. You got a lot of different. You have to keep a different feeding regime. It must be a lot of.
It's a lot of work. Farming.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a lot of work.
Farming is enormous work. And these are just a few animals. We hope to get more. There was that. You see the little one walking? That's a bantam rooster walking along outside the fence.
Right. Okay.
That bantam rooster was part of the petting zoo that you mentioned. A part of the petting zoo, but they abandoned the rooster. They couldn't catch him, and so they just pulled up their stakes and left the rooster. And
so you got him.
We got the. We got him.
Did I mention?
Took a while to get. Caretakers took them a while, but they got him. And
right. Okay, good. I just had my visitation for my granddaughters. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier or not, but they were just visiting me, and we watched the movie Babe. Have you seen the Baby?
Yes,
movie?
isn't that great?
I love that movie.
That's a great
and it
movie.
gives meaning to the creatures, and everything is so beautiful.
It is.
I always cry.
It is, and I think Charlotte's Web is another one that.
Charlotte Web. We were raised on that where I was.
It's a beautiful piece of work.
Yeah.
Where you feel sympathy for the pig.
Yeah.
And the pigs are highly intelligent.
They are. Yeah.
They've got a real bad reputation in the Western world.
They have a thing called, what is the famous one, the animal rights thing, Pet something or Petco? Or
PETA is
PETA.
People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Are you part of that, or what do you think about that?
I think they're good. I think they're good. Some people think they're a little bit
radical.
Well, some think they're radical. Some think they're too incremental, that they'll promote small changes where we really need big changes to get rid of. It's like
Like Upton Sinclair time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Upton Sinclair in the jungle did write about what's happening in the slaughterhouses with the pigs.
And the way things go.
And they're no different.
Up to that too.
And they're no different.
Yeah, right.
And there were laws that came out of the jungle. Upton Sinclair went to my college, by the way, City College.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. Anyway,
proud tradition.
Proud tradition. But there were laws. Came out, but they were all clean meat laws, clean meat laws. In the drug.
What about the creatures?
But nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There are no laws regulating chickens or turkeys. No federal laws.
Yeah.
There's these state initiatives that are making things a tiny bit better. PETA will engage in radical activity, and they've been in the forefront of animal rights. So I support them. They've been out there ahead of other people. And we hope that they will stay radical, because it's a horror. It's a horror. It is a horror. It's a horror out there. And we're all turning the other way.
And it's got some sort of an economic justification and everything. And somehow it's got to be addressed. It even goes in. Are you associated? Maybe it's off the track. John Lovelock and the notion of Gaia.
Yes.
Do you make? I got a friend of mine, Dorian Sagan. His mother's a very well-known biologist. Lynn Margulis, and she's had truck with John Lovelock, who says that the Earth sees the Earth as an organism, and that everything is interconnected to everything else, which seems like elementary, like a truism, and it's really important. I did some things with some people about PETA and that, and I mean even Christopher Bird and the thing that the animal, I mean the vegetation has what could be seen as like pain and feeling.
Yes.
Okay? So that so it goes right down to the vegetation, and we're beginning to draw upon some of the ecological senses maintained among some of the Aboriginal people of this hemisphere or other places. They really are appreciative of nature, and we've got big lessons to learn from them, rather than asking them to pave over all the watering holes and things like we think is the right way to go. And we've got an arrogance of power and technological extension of power and all of these things that I think is really serious, because it could lead us right over the crevasses of unleashing. One of the things that I'm worried, unleashing the destructive capability that's built up through all this kind of accumulation of capability to enforce your will upon the environment through weapon systems that are now species lethal.
Yes, and that's a huge
So it might be
concern.
signaling a big kind of transformative moment, a paradigm of paradigm shifts that would include liberating the folks we started talking about, including the 5-year-olds and so forth.
Liberating the 5-year-olds,
rather than
liberating the forests, let them grow.
Right, forests and and everything like that.
Liberating the animals.
But we might be able to do it in a way where through elegance of design and good design. We don't have design. Our politics is not well designed in terms of what our capability is. It's going into a certain thing, to a new transformative moment now, where all of these ancient scourges that James Joyce collectively called history as a nightmare, we may be awakening from, or have the potential to awaken from it in a way that we had nothing to do but to curse the reality throughout all of human history. We're at a time of qualitative change, like the coming to the end of a gestation period that's been going back 200,000 years of man's tenure on Earth or something. Do you ever get the feeling we're in for a qualitative transformation, almost like punctuated equilibrium?
Well, I hope
or some sort of a quality that is the existential necessity of our not now unutilized, doing all that dammed up energy and capability and misjudgment through weapon systems that we've done with such regularity. We're simply going to have a transformation if we're going to survive, and that survival will have to be more than survival. It'll be a thing that will allow for the full biography and the full participation of all parts of this whole organism called Gaia.
Well said.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Liberation or something.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay, well, we're in good company. Very well. But I don't think there's very many people would think that has much practical application to how in the hell am I going to buy a loaf of bread. It's all dictated by
It has to.
that.
If you cut down all the trees and the vegetation, keep going the way we're going. I mean, they produce the oxygen we need to live.
That's true.
It's just a small point. The waters are poisoned. Most of the waters are to some extent polluted. We have to change and become aware of our interrelationship with other living beings and other living things. I think if a new consciousness does not emerge, we're in bad shape. Hopefully, other things will keep living. But we're in real bad shape.
Yeah.
The solution is, maybe we can go off to outer space somewhere and inhabit a planet.
I don't think
that's going to work.
I don't think that makes any sense. It becomes just unless you get into something that is, but it's patently absurd to think about physically moving in outer space.
That's a Dr. Strangelove scenario.
Yeah, no, it really is.
No, we have to, and you can't keep abusing. Yeah. The trees have a right to live, and the animals.
Absolutely, and I think we're going to find that
the other animals need them.
Absolutely,
and you need the trees to keep the water cool.
Right.
And the waters are cooler.
Yes, that's right. And
it's all interconnected.
There are things that are coming now where things are getting more and more nanotechnology is coming. It's going to qualitatively transform the materials available. They're going to be able to have things that 100 times the power of steel, 1/10 the weight, all kinds of new capabilities. You can do more with less. You can do with good design, and we can provide for everybody in a way that we simply haven't been able to if we have the right system in place. And we could have a liberated order where everybody in the orchestra is playing whatever their desired instrument is to the full tilt that they're able to, without having to kowtow to some system in place that's going to require them, like some slave animal, to go and do something they don't want to do.
There's where you need to begin where we started with children. Exercising their imagination
with the stick,
and the play.
Stick, boom,
At some point, you're going to have leaders who have imagination. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to do these things that you suggest.
They're valuable resources, and creativity and
curiosity.
Creativity and curiosity are worthwhile values to maintain.
Yes.
Rather than beat it out of them in order to turn them into a draft animal.
That's
within some economic model.
Right.
And that applies not only to animals, it applies to people.
Well, you see what we do to the animals, and it's a shame. I mean,
absolutely. I couldn't agree.
But we do it with our own kids.
We do it with humanity.
We
turn them into draft animals.
We do.
And it's done in the name of economic practicality. I got to pay the rent. The thing that people will say, I got to pay the rent. I got to do this. We don't have the economic order is not well designed. It's had a design problem. The politics is not well designed in terms of what the future requires. It's all reifying outdated systems, and we need a qualitative transformation politically, economically, everything, if we're going to make it to a new stage.
Absolutely.
It's a heck of an interesting time to be alive.
It is. You see and
saving animals.
You see You see little cracks of it with the Obama. At least he sees.
Well, there's hope there, isn't there? Where I had a hard time this last 8 years.
He doesn't seem to understand. He doesn't seem to understand animals yet. But
he's getting. I think they're getting there.
You think he'll get there?
I think the whole team is getting there. I think the most important thing is economics. They're getting to the right economics.
If you'll be aggressive and realize that people really want, I think, deep down, they want to be compassionate. They want to save other living things. They want to save the earth. Yeah. I think he could be much bolder, don't you?
Well, I do, but I think he's also trying to be very inclusive. And we're going to have to include everybody.